we've got a problem here with respect to trying to determine what exactly this family was doing to receive these transactions from China. And I think every American should be concerned about that. This is an issue of national security.
Well, it's not just about bank records. House Oversight also requesting the Treasury Department hand over suspicious activity reports on Biden family transactions, plus sales records for Hunter Biden's art that was sold to anonymous buyers because it was so good. Naturally, the president's allies are calling this a witch hunt. Among them, the Oversight Committee's ranking Democrat, Jamie Raskin, who sent a letter to Comer that read in part, quote, "I fear this wildly overbroad subpoena suggests that your interest in this investigation is not in pursuing defined facts or informing public legislation, but conducting a dragnet of political opposition research on behalf of former President Trump," end quote. Regardless, something does not smell right with the Biden clan. So what are Republicans looking for? What might they find, and when will they stop? Here with me now, he's the host of the Ben Domenech Show, also a Fox News contributor. Ben Domenech is back. So Ben, is this subpoena too broad? That's what Jamie Raskin is saying.
No, I don't think so at all. I think that, in fact, this is looking back, basically saying, if your theory of the case is that the minute that Joe Biden became the vice president of the United States, that this was something that his family was engaged in, and that Hunter in particular was the point person on, then I think that you have to ask for this type of broad-based dive into these sorts of things. And of course, there was none of this type of consternation from Jamie Raskin or any other Democrat when it came to delving into the Trump family finances and the like. The thing that I think that is important about this, though, is we don't go down the same route that we saw Democrats engaged in when it came to basically just trying to find things to embarrass their political opponents. There are, as James Comer said, some very significant security questions related to the relationship that Hunter Biden had and what he was effectively selling to these foreign adversaries in ways that I think are really disturbing, and speak to, I think, the indictment in a bipartisan way of the failure of our current governance system to guard against the kind of corruption that we have seen time and again, where foreign entities are allowed to essentially come in and buy families up, buy a number of different politicians up in really disturbing ways. It's just that Hunter's so blatant about them that you can't avoid something like, the art selling to anonymous buyers and the like.
All right, so which one is worse? Because, we saw so much reporting on the Clinton Foundation, and it was they reported their donations very vaguely. And, you had governments from Saudi Arabia to Bananistan giving the Clintons tens of millions of dollars, and they did it under the auspices of this charitable umbrella, the Clinton Foundation. What Hunter is doing, it's like dirtbag's gonna dirtbag. And Hunter Biden just found the people in the darkest corners of the earth who wanted access to American power, and they were willing to pay for it. So which one is worse?
That's a hard question to answer. I actually think that, to a certain extent, what is worse in this context is the fact that Hunter seemed to have engaged in so much behavior that was directly interfacing with a number of nations around the world that do not want the best advantages for the American people. The Clinton Foundation was a corrupt globalist nightmare, obviously, but it's also something where I think that they didn't always go running to America's enemies first. And I think that Hunter had the wisdom to understand those are the people who are willing to pay a premium in terms of accessing the kind of political advantages that one could receive from buying off a president's son. I think that this is an absolutely important thing for us to get to the bottom to. And I want us to be able to say with a very clear record, what we know about the Hunter Biden situation. Was he absolutely able to influence his father in some ne'er-do-well fashion, or was this all just a bunch of smoke without a fire? I happen to think that we're probably going to find it's a lot closer to the former than the latter.
Well, apparently there's a third Biden, in addition to the president's son and his brother, who was also receiving what appeared to be laundered payments through another business source. Rob Walker was given millions of dollars, almost $5 million, by communist Chinese officials. And then, through his bank account, they could see that he was just dishing it out like Pez from a Pez dispenser on Easter to various Bidens. So, yeah, this could be problematic. But, you know, unless you say, but Trump's worse, then I guess all is forgiven, right?
You know, I think that one of the things that we've gained too much tolerance for in this day and age is a willingness to just look the other way when people are willing to work for America's enemies. It's one thing if you're taking, you know, payments or doing things that are untoward or unethical related to those who are still our allies, still nations that we are going to largely work well with. In this case, Hunter was going to the worst of the worst. And I think that one of the things that we need to understand fully is what he was actually promising in return for these exorbitant amounts of money, given his record and his resume or lack thereof.
Yeah, and was it access to his dad? Much more important than some of the Ween picks. Ben, thank you so much for your time as always.
Good to be with you.